Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm Dear Darling. I shall see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhollow today. Where, what should we talk about? You know what? Something I could talk about. If you don't know, okay, I don't know how many steps of you don't know I should go backwards with, but basically, the social media site Reddit is kind of going through like what's the word? Like a blackout. Is probably the word. The internet's done it a few times, I think, before. The one that mostly comes to mind is when the internet was protesting. What was the bill called? SOPA bill? And then it became copper, and then it became something else, and then it passed anyway or something. So I don't know. Anyway, we'll get onto that in a bit. Hello everyone. Right now in Fawnhallow at 6:14 p.m. on Monday, June 12th, 2023. Yeah. So basically, what's happening with Reddit right now is they're changing the system where as I understand it, where basically for Reddit API calls, once you reach a certain number of calls, I think it's like 100 or something, in a day, I can't remember, in some time frame, you need to now charge. You will be charged for like for some amount for the next however many API calls you do, and you might be like, what does that mean if you're not familiar with API calls and that sort of thing. Basically, API is just like a programming sort of way for you to interface with the code of Reddit while not actually changing the code. It's sort of like, I would call it like a port in a city. If like Reddit is a city or that sort of thing, you can go to the port and still trade and conduct business and that sort of thing without having to like move into the city itself. It's just kind of like an avenue for people who are much smarter than I am, because I not really worked with APIs, so I don't really know how to do it. But anyway, that's a long and short of it. Basically, Reddit is now charging for these API calls, so the data it's sending out, which basically means, as I understand it, a lot of third-party apps, so apps not developed by Reddit company themselves, are now being heavily affected by this. The most notable ones being the fact that if every single Reddit app, which is not the official Reddit app, now costs an insane amount of money to run. some ridiculous amount, because they make an insane amount of calls. Currently, I assume they were being charged for API calls, but it was probably a low amount, I'd assume, because generally it's quite nice to I'm not like that familiar, like I'm kind of like, I'm not super familiar into like the tech world and that sort of thing, but generally I feel like what most sites do is they have a low charge for the API calls, and like they don't make it just completely free, because then like people like scrapers or whatever could come and scrape all the data, just for free, but you keep it still low, so then it, like, I don't know, promotes business or something. Probably, right? Like it promotes engagement with a site, and allows a lot of useful other things which people like to interface with, in Reddit's case being like people like to use third-party apps. I like to use the third-party app. I use Relay for Reddit, but also a video was uploaded. Did I give it a title? I did give it a title. Fantastic. But there's also a lot of nice features like Reddit bots, which can do a lot of useful features. For example, there's moderation bots, which if you run a subreddit, if you're a moderator for it, you can have an automatic an auto moderator who can like look at the interface of an API and like read comments and like automatically delete things which like look like spam or contain like things which break rules, etc, 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 or can automatically flag things and warn things. Basically, it's just like a tool to help moderate things a lot of times. And there's also a lot of other nice bots which show up in the comments, some for fun, like the haiku bot, which just turns your comment into a haiku, or other things which might be more or less useful, who knows. But the thing is, with API changes, basically, it's like a lot of that is coming to an end. Not all of them technically is coming to an end. If you are something which has very few API calls, like a bot which is not used very often, then I think you're fine. But it's a sort of thing where most people will be kind of affected, both from a consumer standpoint and for the people, the moderators and the third-party developers. Why Reddit's doing it, who knows? Probably the boring answer of they want to make some money from this. Reddit's a weird thing, because it's kind of like an entire social media platform built off stealing from, well, not stealing, because I guess it's not really like thievery in a sense, but like it's an aggregation site. It's not, it wasn't born out of the idea of like this is where original creations come from necessarily. It is now, to be fair, it's a mix of things, but it's meant to be an aggregate site of loads of other different sites and other sources, right? which has in turn led to a lot of like thievery, I suppose, in the case, like uncredited work being posted, etc., things like that. So it's weird to, you know, it's weird the way that I suppose they want to monetize it. I assume through like ads or through like a Reddit subscription or something, but Reddit very much has been sort of on a downhill spiral, I think, for the past few years, but it's still something I use because it's still one of the most convenient sites. I like having an aggregate site, you know, which combines all the things together. It doesn't have to be Reddit for me, but I just like it because, you know, like I follow these games and that sort of thing, and I'm like, okay, there's no one central place to talk about games. I could talk about it on the forums, but oftentimes the forums on the site are like really inconvenient to use, and I kind of like having all my different games be together on a different site, or like central talking places, or like ways to get news, ways to get fan art, ways to get discussions, etc., etc. I think it's useful. I think the concept of Reddit is a nice site, but certainly it's been under some questionable decisions and leaderships recently, most of which I don't think actually affect the consumer, me as a user, too much, or at least not in a way that me as a sort of like ignorant user really notices. A lot of it probably tends to be with difficulty, especially like through moderation, I'd assume. The only thing which I really think affects me as a end user would be the fact that they like remodeled the site, and the remodeled site is honestly terrible. Like, I'm not gonna be like the old Reddit is like a feast for the eyes or anything like that, but it's functional. It's very like early 2000s sort of like interface, so it's not exactly the most approachable thing. It's not terrible either, but it's not like you would look at it and be like, this is super sleek or anything. But the new one is just really slow, and every time I use it, I keep accidentally like closing out of things or losing posts, and then I can't see comments, and then it's just like, I don't know what on earth is going on. So I'm willing to stick through a much less sleek interface for, you know, functionality. But that doesn't really matter, because most of the time I actually use Reddit on my phone, I think, nowadays, to use a relay app, and then you know, without being gone. I haven't ever used the official Reddit app before, so I don't know. Apparently it's functional, apparently it's fine, so maybe I'd switch over to that, maybe I won't. But the general idea is that most subreddits, which are like the smaller communities on Reddit themselves, are going on like a kind of like strike, essentially. It's not an actual strike, because I guess they're not like workers necessarily, but it's the equivalent of a strike, where basically they're doing a blackout, which is they are basically locking down the subreddits. Like you can't post new things, I think, for most of the times, or a lot of communities are going private, so you can't even access them. Basically it's just to make Reddit be not usable for like I think it's like today and tomorrow or something, which is fair enough, because then it's like, hey, you know, it's trying to get your voice out. Hey Reddit, we don't like these changes, we're going to directly impact the traffic to your site, and that sort of thing. So that's a general idea, I think, behind it. Some communities I hear, like one of them I follow, D&D memes, is going permanently like private, or temporarily shutting down until changes are made. Now you might ask me, do I think any changes are going to be made? And the honest answer is I kind of doubt it. Reddit's not been particularly got a great track history, I think, of implementing these sort of changes when users obviously don't like them. So, you know, I'm not particularly hopeful, but I'm not like that attached to Reddit, to be perfectly honest. If Reddit dies, you know, social media is very much an ever-changing sort of industry, not on like a yearly scale, but like certainly on like a 5-year scale, 10-year scale. Things come and go very, very quickly. I mean, think about it now. Like, how many of you like use Facebook on a daily basis? Probably like none of you, unless you maybe like you're a demographic who is like over 50 or something. I'm assuming most of you are teens and young adults, so you probably did use Facebook like all the time when maybe like somewhere from 10 to 5 years ago, because it was like what was used most often. Nowadays everyone's moved on from Facebook, people have moved on to Instagram, I would say, but like a lot of social medias have come and gone. You know, Vine obviously came and then died, and then now people move on to TikTok. Twitter is sort of kind of dying, but still kind of here at the same time. Tumblr was something which like was pretty popular in like the early 2010s, I would say. Then it like completely died, and then it's now like reviving, mainly because Twitter's kind of dying. And if anything, you know, props to Tumblr. I suppose they're making a kind of a comeback, because if Reddit's dying as well, I wouldn't be surprised if Tumblr makes a little bit of a return, but we'll see. isn't it like Snapchat is actually another one which comes to mind, where, you know, it was super popular, at least for me, back in like sixth form to university time, and then after that no one uses it. Well, I shouldn't say no one uses it anymore, but it's not really used. At least I only know like a couple of people who really use it all that often, but I feel like it's certainly less used compared to a lot of other sort of social not so networking sites, but like the ones, you know, things like Bumble or whatever, Hinge. I guess those are kind of more like dating apps, but still. So yeah, I'm not really all that attached to Reddit. If it dies, you know, the internet is a prevalent place for communities. Communities will spring up anywhere. You know, there'll be something to replace Reddit if it dies, because people would just, you know, be like, hey, this is a cool new site, it's got a nice interface, you know, it's run by like an indie team who promises they'll never like sell out data or sell out to advertisers, and then inevitably like 5 years down the road when it becomes super big, the creator doesn't want to have to deal with the stress of running this company anymore. They're probably going to sell the company of a majority of the stakeholder they have in the company to someone else, and then that person is going to like run it into the ground as they try to implement monetization schemes to the deficit of a user, and eventually it's going to go slightly too far where people are just like, hey, we're not going to put up with this anymore, and then we all move to another site. It's just how the world goes, I suppose. It'd be nice if it didn't, but alas, that is the way I suppose it works, from like an offshoot of capitalism or something. Anyway, I'm not like a business major, so perhaps I shouldn't be commenting like this, because I don't really know the exact details of these sort of things. All I know is that there is basically a blackout in Reddit, and you know, as I said before, the internet has done like blackouts before, like the one I talked about, like SOPA or COPPA or whatever, basically was sort of like the Child Protection Act of the internet, which is in quotes not really actually for protecting children. As it turns out, it was more just to do with being able to like throttle like networks discriminatorily, essentially. Anyway, as I said, I heard that basically, you know, it was protest, and they were like, whoa, we're not going to do SOPA, and they were like, okay, now we're going to try and pass something called COPPA. It's something completely different, and people were like, whoa, stop that, and they're like, okay, we're not going to do COPPA, we're going to do PIPA, and then it was like, whoa, stop that, and then, you know, they basically kept doing that over and over again until people eventually lost interest or didn't hear about it, or the news or the hype or whatever for it. Not hype necessarily, but the news about it died down, and it was like, whoa, we're going to introduce, you know, they probably called it like Gooper or something. Whoa, no one opposes this one? Okay, cool. And then they finally got whatever they wanted into effect. That's what I heard. I don't actually know if that's true or not, but also, Apollo, you're not allowed to move on, sorry. You can't move on. It was your fault. No, I'm joking. I don't want you to go. Yeah, so that's basically what's happening. I know not every subreddit is shut down and that sort of thing, but you know, most of the subreddits I use are like doing a blackout, so I've just chosen not to use Reddit today. I've actually gone back to like Twitter and Tumblr a bit more often. I mean, Twitter, Tumblr and YouTube is basically what I'm sort of like flicking in between. It never really occurred to me how often I sort of just like, I'm bored, I open up Reddit and I look at Reddit and I'm like, nothing's new, and then I just close it again. So really, if anything, there's no major loss in my life. Well, it started out as me using Reddit, I think, for the purposes of having an aggregation, like an easy way to access things. Like, actually, like genuinely, the first time I properly used Reddit was because it was back in the day, like, so I must have been like 14 or something. I wanted to like watch like the latest My Little Pony episodes of Friendship is Magic, and I was like, I don't know where to even find these episodes or anything. And then I think it was my sister or something is like, you should try Reddit because they will probably have it. And I was like, okay, so I searched it, Reddit /r/My Little Pony or whatever, and then I was like, yeah, okay, they got links to the newest episodes, and I was like, okay, cool. And then I started using it because at the time I was playing like League of Legends, and I was like, hey, I wonder if there's a League of Legends subreddit, I like this game, and I was like, oh, there it is. And then I started following other ones. Nowadays I sort of just flick back and forth between the games I play, so it'd be like League of Legends, r/games, because as I say, I like gaming news, and then it would be like things like Genshin or Honkai, Star Rail, etc. Like some of these like gaming subreddits, which I don't go to all that often because a lot of the times they're just sort of like floods of fan art. But nowadays I feel like I kind of check with Discords for these sites a bit more often. Kind of weird, because back in the early 2000s to early 2010s, especially, chat rooms were like a super big thing. Like I used to go on them when I was younger, you know, don't tell my parents, definitely I was like, probably shouldn't have been, but that's sort of like an inevitability in some sense. Yeah, I'd go on these chat rooms and like chat with people and that sort of thing. That's, you know, that's kind of like what Discord is sort of now. It's a lot more moderated than those early 2000s chat rooms, mind you. So I think things are okay. I wouldn't be surprised if Discord ends up being the next sort of big social media thing rather than like Reddit, you know. It's got the same sort of idea and it feels the same sort of niche for me, where I'm just like, I want to find sub-communities based around the interests that I like. The only thing I had a problem with Discord before is the fact that, of course, there aren't things like threads. You can't, all the discussions are basically just in one huge channel in a huge list. But actually Discord, not too long ago, like a few months ago, I'd say like 6 months ago, no, maybe that's too far, like 3 months ago or something, they introduced like threads in Discord, so you can actually like create threads and like have it be like an actual like forum, I suppose, as well as a chat room, which is super cool, to be honest. And, you know, basically all the games I follow, like, you know, Genshin, Honkai, Project Sakai, all of my like random mobile games, I just use the Discord, you know, to get my news. I use it to see the discussion, I use it to see like questions and answers and etc, etc. So I'm not going to be surprised if Discord ends up, you know, being the cool one, I suppose, for the next while, until, you know, inevitably it is no longer cool. But that's just the way of the internet world. The way of the World Wide Web. That would be such a better joke. So yeah, I don't know. Reddit. That's kind of it. I don't know if I've really spoken much about Reddit before, to be perfectly honest. But it's, yeah. If it dies, then so be it. Farewell. It is a shame, because, again, I do like these aggregation sites, but I don't know, maybe it will stand the test of time. You know, maybe it will become under new management, you know, just like Tumblr, you know, kind of died because, like, Yahoo bought it for, like, $1 billion, and they had to sell it for, like, 7 million or something because no one used it anymore. And now Tumblr's getting a little bit of a resurgence after, I assume under new management. I don't really know. I don't know the business deals behind it. So, yeah, that's my prediction. Quote me, I suppose. Years. I mean, like, Discord's already like super popular, I'm going to be honest. I feel like it's especially popular now in the younger internet generation, like the generation below me, who use the internet. Not like Zoomers or like Generation Alpha, not like that, but like internet generations, I think a lot more narrower in scope. But like the next wave of people who use the internet, like the next, like people who are like 5 to 10 years younger than me, I suppose, probably, I think, use Discord as the main means of like social media communication online, for like, you know, like these online like nerdier gaming, I don't want to say gaming communities, because it's like definitely I feel like the most popular through like all people would probably be like Instagram or something, but you know, like these like niche online communities. Basically, what I'm saying is basically I'm not going to be surprised if all the Reddit crowd moved to Discord. It's basically the long and short of it. And I'm fine with that, because Discord, I think Discord is a great client. I think Discord is a fantastic program for now. And, you know, if it happens, it happens. What more can I say? So, yeah, I don't know. Internet blackout. Support it or don't, I suppose. You know, either way, it's happening, isn't it? So I'm going to round this episode off here. So if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Twitter, Discord down below. Hope we see each other again. But for now, it's our farewells. Until next time. Bye-bye for now.